Welcome to the Volt Show. I'm Tad and I'm here with James.
And we're going to talk about
F9.
F9. You mean Fast and Furious 9?
No, not about cars like crashing into each other. We're talking about FSD9.
FSD9.
This is about computers crashing into each other. I mean, computers driving the car.
What is FSD stand for?
So FSD stands for full self-driving.
And why is there a 9 in there?
Well, that's just the version number. And usually this would not be a big deal. No one said, oh, well, what about the difference between FSD5 and FSD6? It's like usually not a big deal. But the difference between FSD8 and FSD9 is a big deal.
All right, well, let's roll back a little bit because some of our viewers might not understand. Well, what is this guy talking about? 5, 8, 9, big deal, whatever, like jump from this. Who makes FSD9? Give us a little breakdown of that first.
Yeah,
huh?
So Tesla makes full self-driving software, and this is probably the most advanced self-driving software that's available to the public right now.
And Tesla has been working on this for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of their cars has cameras on it, and it used to have radar and all that stuff. But FSD9 is slowly they're coming out with things that could actually drive the car in any situation, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of it. And I mean, a lot of manufacturers and a lot of car manufacturers, they have the auto assist and all that stuff on the highways and stuff like that. But this is full self-driving. It's city streets.
Yeah. So it can actually make right and left turns. It can also make unprotected lefts and that kind of thing. This is like not a just cruise control or a smart cruise control for highways. This is like really end-to-end driving. And you mentioned removing the radar. That's actually very significant that Tesla removed the radar. That means that they're able to solve the self-driving problem in a whole different way, without using radar.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But so basically today we're going to talk about this big jump that Tesla just announced and released into the world, FSD9, and some of the implications of that, what we think about it and what led up to it, as well as some implications for the future, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about FSD8 to 9. Tesla has been working on this for a really, really long time. They've already implemented this in numerous ways. Elon Musk had been talking about how he's been using Alpha for a really, really long time, just going back and forth from work and stuff. But now it's in beta. In the earlier portion of this year, it came out. But we were already talking about it back then. But what is so significant with this recent rollout?
Yeah, I think the big significance is this is the first major rollout of Tesla Vision. And basically what Tesla Vision is a whole new approach, or it's like a very deep code refactoring, or it's like a different way that the code was structured that is way healthier and a really good foundation for actually solving the full self-driving problem. So,
It was a monumental shift because prior to this, they were using radar, like we mentioned earlier, but now it's completely radarless.
Yeah, right. It's without radar. Actually, Andre Karpathy even mentioned it's like 100 times better. The signal is 100 times better than radar.
How is that even possible? Because everybody is talking about how radar and like LiDAR specifically is like the path to autonomous driving. And here comes Tesla, and they're like, nope, no way, we don't even need that. All we need is our 8 cameras or whatever around the car, and that's enough. So what is so crazy about this from a production standpoint and from a technological standpoint? Like, this is pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, and I think the key here is it's AI. So back in the day, this all goes back to the DARPA competition. DARPA is the advanced defense, kind of like the cutting edge defense projects that the U.S. military does. And they wanted self-driving cars and self-driving everything after the Fukushima disaster, because they wanted to see like if automated things can actually help protect human lives. And back then they used LiDAR to win the race. And actually, a lot of those people from those winning teams actually went off and started self-driving companies with LiDAR. But it's a night and day difference what happened during the DARPA competition and what is actually needed to solve the self-driving problem. Because with that competition, they didn't have AI as advanced as it is today. They didn't have those solutions. They didn't have like a million, DARPA landscapes to do it over and over again to kind of understand how to solve the problem with AI. They could only solve it with LiDAR. They could only solve it by saying, hey, is there something in front of you? Don't crash into it. Is there something in front of you? Don't crash into it. That was the only way they could solve that problem. But actually, that's not the right approach to solve it for our city streets.
Because research has been done to be able to generate depth perception just from images.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so machine learning and AI, deep learning has greatly advanced in the past couple of years. So, before people thought it had to be with LiDAR, it had to be with radar, all this other stuff. Basically, you're just kind of feeling around blindly and saying, okay, how far away is it? How far away is it? And determining whether to drive that way. But actually, like some of the biggest problems is like you can actually get depth just from the camera. And all you have to do is train the data. You just need like a massive amount of data. But once you have a massive amount of data, you can actually get the depth data.
And let's go even a step further. This is what Elon Musk was talking about in this 4D, not just trying to put the car in 3D space, in 4D space. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
he rocked the world when he was saying that full self-driving is going to go into 4D mode, right?
Yeah, I think that was crazy. So, usually we think in 3 dimensions and we think, hey, there's depth, there's height, there's width. So that's 3 dimensions. But there's actually a 4th dimension there that is unseen, which is time. And across time, you can also train these images and do AI across time. And this is really revolutionary because if you go take a machine learning or convolutional neural networks course at school right now, they will just say, hey, do this exercise, bunch of pictures and determine whether it's a red or a green light, or determine if this is a cat or not. And then you just go through many, many, many different pictures. But it's not just that. What if the computer could understand the context? What if it could not even see the cat behind the car or the kid behind the car, but still understand that there's probably a kid behind the car because of the context of all the different video frames, and understand as it's turning and all the cameras know what's actually going on across time. Then the type of driving and the type of knowledge would be, orders of magnitude better than before.
And we do this all the time, right? When we're creeping up and sometimes there's something blocking our view, but we can see the cars passing through when we're trying to make an unprotected left, right? Suddenly a car disappears behind a tree or something like that, and we can't see it anymore, or a parked car or whatever. We can't see that anymore. And if you were just doing image by image, it would think that there's nothing there. Yeah. But as humans, we understand there's something behind there, and it's going to come, and I can't go out. But the Tesla is now able to kind of put that into context and see things moving. And you mentioned the cat or the kid hiding behind a tree or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can make better decisions on how to drive.
Yeah.
Which is eerily similar to slowly getting to human abilities to drive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you actually see this in the previous Andre Kampathy talk where he was talking about with radar, it was basically dropping the signal. What was happening is it had to emergency stop, but it knew hey, the car's right there. And then it would be brake. And then right after that, in the next millisecond, it said, oh, you don't have to brake because the radar was confused. And then it had to think oh, brake. And it kept going on and off. And it didn't really understand what was going on. But when they had the vision only approach, it actually did the hard brake all the way through smoothly and knew exactly what was going on the entire time. So the radar was actually confusing the system. It was not helping the system versus pure vision, which understood the context, understood what was going on, and reacted appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, that was the conflict coming on. If you have multiple signals, which signal do you trust? But I mean, that's kind of somewhat of a technological perspective on this. But there's a production aspect of this that's also really amazing, right? Because now you're taking away radar from all these cars, right? And that's additional cost that you've now cut down into, right? So now you don't have to put in radar. Other car manufacturers trying to do autonomous driving, they're still putting up, it's cheaper than before, but they still have to have all this equipment on the car in order to try to achieve what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
If these car manufacturers were to do the same approach as what Tesla's doing, they probably would need radar on their cars today. Even though they know that vision only is the way to go, you still need radar to train the system. Okay, this is how far away these objects are, and eventually, like, you get rid of the training wheels and just go vision only. But they'll need radar to do that.
Yeah.
So then, although the car manufacturers, they have to deal with higher costs, they have to deal with integrating all this technology, all that stuff. Tesla's saying, like, we've already done all this stuff. Like, we don't need the training wheels anymore.
And they've already had hundreds of thousands of cars, maybe in the millions, driving. What is it, like 2 billion miles they've driven with these cameras?
Yeah, way more than that now. And and it's basically, it's they're showing that, hey, when they drop it and they're saying, hey, we're ready for FSD9, that's why it's so significant. Mm-hmm. They're saying that they're this close to everything that's necessary for full autonomy.
And the drivers out there, we see some. I mean, it's not perfect. Let's be honest, right? It's not perfect, and still some work that needs to be done. And I see some of the videos, but I see some of the videos, and some of them are really, really crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're like driving through like all these scenarios. I'm like, this is a computer driving? That's pretty wild.
Yeah. It can deal with cones. It can deal with all this other stuff, And I think a common question that people bring up is, hey, why can't the car know when there's like a mistake? Like, oh, this is a very tricky street. Why can't it learn from that and say, hey, the next time it encounters it, why doesn't it just avoid this weird edge case and just do it on its own? That is a little bit of a difference between how humans drive and how we drive, or how the AI drives, is that, yes, when it encounters it again, it will do the exact same mistake again. And that's because this stuff has to be done as if it was the very first time that the computer was seeing this road, like, ever. Mm-hmm. So, it's not going to just think like, oh, I know this street, I know that street. If you do that, that's not scalable. The Tesla is actually seeing that scene for the very first time.
That's right. Because
it has a computer on board. It's not constantly talking to the internet and asking the cloud what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. Because if it was like that, then the minute your internet connection cuts out, then like it's completely confused and it crashes, right? But that's not how it works. It's completely independent, offline, and it's, even if it's a street it's never seen before, it's able to handle it.
Yeah, and if it doesn't have Wi-Fi or whatever, it still can perform. It is completely unplugged.
And that's what's needed for autonomy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I also think it's really amazing that Tesla had already kind of put into place the software update system for all their cars, right? Because instantly, as their algorithm gets better, they have a new release of the algorithm that can fix those things. It could be pushed out immediately.
Yeah, and that was part of this master plan. They knew that the only thing necessary was actually the software that was holding it back, not the hardware.
Yeah. And so even think about, people don't talk about this, but like even this FSD9 rollout, right? Overnight, like so many cars just had FSD9. They were just like, hey, we're going to release FSD9 on Friday night, 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
And then just bam, like that.
Yeah. And I think that's crazy. Like, that's way more profound than it looks like at first glance, because with Waymos and all these other manufacturers, they have to make these hundreds of thousands of dollars cars every single time, and it takes really like a ton of time to even make one car. So they'll have like 300 cars, and they'll say, hey, we're gonna roll out, and then slowly they'll creep across the entire nation. That's gonna take decades, and that's true, that's gonna take decades. But if you have millions of Teslas on the road, and just overnight it can be a software update,
and there's gonna be crazy. Another million on the road at the end of this year, man. At the pace that Tesla's going,
that's super exciting.
I still don't know why Tesla is valued what it is. I mean, it's just the world-changing company. It's gonna be crazy, and we haven't even discussed their solar and all these other things.
I think it's gonna be very exciting. It's really like a modern day Trojan horse, and like a sleeper unit that they can just enable the software, and everything will be able to drive itself Of course, they have to work out a lot of the bugs and that kind of thing, but just to see that it's possible and it's this close is really exciting.
Yeah, so I think FSD9 proves that Tesla is the leader in autonomous driving, and they are really close to bringing that autonomous feature. Pretty wild.
Yeah,
and there's a lot to look forward to with Tesla and what they're going to bring. Really excited to see what they're going to bring out in the potential AI day. Did they announce that? Is that confirmed?
Yeah, well, not the specific day, but they said sometime this year. So
that's going to be a lot of fun. We're hoping that they're actually going to release the full version, wide release. That would be wild.
Yeah, that'd be super exciting.
Well, thank you for joining us today, talking about FSD9. It was great talking about it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a little thing or two about what Tesla is doing with autonomous driving and what's going on with that.
Yeah, and feel free to comment and like. Thanks.
Bro, it's like, comment, subscribe. Who says comment, like? Come on, man.